Hello and welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey. My name is Art. I am really glad to be back. It has been a long time since I've been able to sit down and record something. A couple months ago, my dad passed away rather unexpectedly. Before that, I had a bit of a cold, and then I heard my dad passed away, and then I got another cold that started off with a strep throat, went to sinus infection, chest infection. Doctor thought it was COVID. Maybe it was bronchitis. Nobody knew what was going on with me other than I was very sick, coughing a lot. I had no voice, no energy to do anything. And that, fortunately, thankfully, is now gone. I feel like my voice is back to speed, and I am just really excited to be back on my channel talking about my books and the books I'm reading, the books I'm going to be reading, all the bookish things. First of all, I don't know if you can read my shirt, but it says, if you can read this shirt, I was forced to put down my book and rejoin society, which is definitely how I'm feeling today. The downside of being sick is I couldn't really go anywhere or do anything. I mean, literally standing up would often cause me to cough and have these dizzy spells where I almost blacked out. It was weird. But the upside is that I got a lot of good reading done. I don't know if I'll have time to film any videos doing some wrap-ups. I'm hoping, I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm hoping to do better at some of the book wrap-ups in the future. But we're just kind of starting fresh here. Also, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for everyone who's subscribed to the channel. Even though I wasn't putting out anything new, I've had a few new subscribers join, and I'm really happy to have you on board. So today, I want to talk about my Big Summer TBR. I don't usually stick to strict TBRs, and I don't know if I film a lot of TBR videos other than for events like Jane Austen July and Victober. And even, to be honest, TBRs aren't necessarily my favorite videos to watch, mostly because it seems like half of the ones I watch, the host ends up saying, well, I didn't get to half the books I wanted to, and all that. And I guess I'd rather hear about books you have read than books you think you might read. But then on the other hand, it's really exciting to hear somebody excited about a book they haven't read yet. So I don't know. I'm just a walking contradiction sometimes. But all that aside, what I want to share today are books that I'm definitely going to be reading this summer because of a couple of different reading clubs and groups I'm a part of, as well as some different challenges I have set for myself. These are some things I want to share with you that I'm really looking forward to reading this summer. And this certainly isn't going to be everything I'm reading. I'm reading a lot more than what I'll share today. But these are the things that are going to form the core of my summertime reading. So with that, let's jump in. First of all, I've been reading Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. I actually started that back in January. The Jane Austen Society of North America has a group that meets in Omaha, and that's the closest group near me. It's still about a 50-minute drive, but I've been able to go to a few of their meetings, not every month. I'm usually pretty busy on Saturdays, which is when they meet. But this year they're reading through Mansfield Park. Last year they did Pride and Prejudice. So I was able to start at the beginning with them. And then in January, they weren't able to meet because of a snowstorm. And then the last few months, I haven't had a chance to actually get over there. But I'm reading along with them, trying to keep pace. And I'm hoping to actually read more of Mansfield Park during Jane Austen July. That's going to be my Jane Austen book for that month. I might just try to go ahead and finish it. Spending about 6 to 7 months on one book is driving me a little nutty. I kind of would like to get it finished, and I'll still be able to engage in conversation and things if I'm able to make it to a meeting there in Omaha with the Jasna group. But I'd like to see this book maybe finished up in July. So we'll see about that. But I'll have a separate video where I talk about my Jane Austen July reading. But just to briefly note, I'm reading Mansfield Park. This is, I think, the second or third time I've read it. Well, only the second time I've read it, I think. I'm reading the annotated version, so this thing is like a doorstop. I don't happen to have it here with me, but it's huge. And the notes in this book are so in depth and so informative that I am definitely enjoying this book more than I have in the past. It's certainly one of my lesser favorite Jane Austen books, and it's a plot that I'm still struggling to comprehend exactly what all is happening, or could I even say what the point is of this book. But that's one of the reasons why I enjoy reading classics and rereading them, as well as reading them with a group. Just that discussion, the notes, again, like I said, give me some good insight, and it's definitely a more improved reading experience this time around overall. So I'll have some other plans for Jane Austen July that I'll talk about in my hopefully next video. And then another book I'm reading for the summer. I really am excited about this. There's a group online that's loosely connected with Kate Howe's channel and in her Victorian reading group. And I don't remember who started the group, but I'm a part of it. We're going to be reading Moby Dick over the summer, June, July, and August. And I just started reading that this week. I'm taking kind of a chapter to 2 chapters a day right now. And I'm really going to try hard to pace myself to read this through the summer. So, but I have read this book, Moby Dick, a couple of times. I've really enjoyed it, but I haven't read it in quite a long time. I want to say maybe 10 or 15 years it's been. I first read Moby Dick as a teenager. I had just graduated high school, and I wanted to do something really epic to celebrate. So the first thing that popped in my head was, I should read Moby Dick. That's a classic everybody reads, and I'll at least be able to say I've read Moby Dick. So yeah, I was a book nerd even when I was 18. No big surprise there, right? And probably the only reason I didn't have a booktube channel back then is because the internet hadn't been invented yet, or had just started. So yeah, I'm that old. This time around, it's been a lot of fun just to read one chapter and just kind of savor it, reread a paragraph that I think is beautifully written. The beginning chapters really just talk about Ishmael and his reasons for going to sea, how he meets Queequeg, and their kind of hilarious first meeting, which they end up sharing basically a hotel room, and they have to share a bed, and it's all awkward and hilarious and possibly mildly, well, I wouldn't say racist, but maybe some observations haven't aged well. I don't know. He describes Queequeg as being caught between what Melville calls the savage and being socialized. So he's kind of this in-between state. And I honestly, I think it's kind of an interesting description that will play out throughout the novel, as you know, Queequeg's kind of caught between these two worlds, and then Captain Ahab comes in and just really messes things up. So I'm looking forward to the rereading experience. But overall, I think it's obviously a novel of its time, but if you're able to get through that, it's a really thrilling adventure story that I think is going to be a perfect summer read. And then starting on Monday, so if this comes out, I don't know when the video will come out, but on June 10th, I'll be starting Barnaby Rudge by Dickens. Now that is a book I've only read once a long time ago, like 20 years ago or so. And I remember enjoying it. I remember thinking this is a hidden gem of Dickens, but then I've never gone back to it, and I want to go ahead and reread that again. I won't be doing audiobook with this. I'll be reading it slowly over the summer. And I'm really not setting any real pace for it, like I have to read, 10 chapters a week or something. I'm just going to kind of let it just read naturally, I guess, for lack of a better word. I'm not going to put myself on a schedule. I'm not going to try to be in a hurry to read it. I'm going to slow down and enjoy it, and perhaps, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking I might do some reading updates and videos on that book in particular throughout the summer. So if that's a book you want to read along with me, let me know. we can maybe chat about it on Voxer or on Discord or something. And or if you've just recently read it, I'd love to talk to you about it. Just let me know if you're willing to chat, and I'll reach out to you. And honestly, it's been so long that the details of the plot are very hazy. So I don't want to go and reread a summary and get spoiled or anything, but I know it has to do with the Gordon riots. It's one of Dickens's few historical fiction novels. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that reread. Dickens is always a delight to read. I honestly can't think of anything by Dickens I've read that I haven't enjoyed at least a little bit. I'm looking forward to seeing how much my first impression of Barnaby Rudge holds up to a reread. So that'll be my reading for probably June and July and some of August, I expect. So another reading challenge I attempted to do was June on the Range, and I read a Zane Grey novel. That I already finished. I got through it a lot quicker than I expected, but it was called The Rustlers of Pecos County. That one is essentially about a cowboy, who's working with the Rangers to uncover a rustler's ring. There's a beautiful girl caught up in the story, and there's gunfights. There's beautiful descriptions of scenery. Zane Grey certainly doesn't like to hold back on words and purple prose for sure. But I kind of like that about him. Like, I've enjoyed a lot of the Westerns of his I've read, and I feel like for him it works, whereas other authors it might not. I know, not everyone can handle that, and that's fine. There are times where I have to just kind of take a little break from Zane Grey and think, usually the female characters are flighty at best. Although I seem to remember his book Wildfire is one of my favorites, and I believe that one has a fairly strong female character in it. I really am bothered, when it just seems like they have no agency or purpose other than just being the damsel in distress and the object for which the cowboy falls in love. I don't know. Call me a feminist, but is it so wrong to ask that our female characters actually have some purpose in the plots? I don't know. But in any case, that was a fun read. Not a whole lot to say about it other than I read it. I, in the very minimal way possible, participated in June on the Range, and I'm going to call that good. I haven't read any Louis L'Amour. I was going to, but then I decided to wait. As you know, and I think in my last video where I was talking about my dad and some of the books he likes to read, Louis L'Amour was one of his favorite authors, and he had a bunch of old collector's editions of Louis L'Amour novels. And I've asked to have those from my dad's house. My brother and others are right now going through his house and getting it, boxed up and all that. And I happened to see those on some pictures, and I asked if they were still around. And long story short, I'm going to be getting my dad's Louis L'Amour collection. So I'm going to wait and read from him until I can get that collection in and on my shelves, because I think that would be a very special experience. My grandfather, his dad, was a big fan of President Truman, and it ties in a lot with my grandfather's experiences with World War II and how Truman helped to end that war. I know, it's kind of seen today as kind of a controversial ending. And my grandfather acknowledged that, but, he said if it wasn't for Truman dropping the bomb on Japan, he said, I would have been on, the front lines of the invasion of mainland Japan. And my grandfather said, I was not a good soldier. I wasn't, he was an engineer. He wasn't a fighter. And he said, I was just certain I was going to die. And he said, if I had been on the front lines, I would have died. And he just was sure of that. And so to him, Truman was a hero. So he spent his life collecting books about Harry Truman and reading about him and everything. And that was something very important to him. I'm going somewhere with this. So my grandfather had a collection of Harry S. Truman books. And so I was able to get those books when my grandfather passed away. And so I thought it would be really, really neat to have kind of a memorial collection of books that meant a lot to my grandfather and then meant a lot to my father. And then, someday when I kick the bucket, my kids can add all my Charles Dickens books to the mix, and we can just have this ongoing Kilmer Memorial Library. So, surprising no one, I've just gotten off topic, but that was my experience with June on the Range. Very, very short and to the point there. So then for August, there's a reading challenge called Garbaugust, and I will probably participate in that again. I did last year, and I mostly read like Victorian penny dreadfuls, which is a lot of fun because I can participate in Garbaugust and still read books from a time period I'm really interested in. I did try to read something more modern. It was like Amish Vampires in Space, which was a real disappointment. Like the best part of that book was the title, and that was about it. Although I did read a movie tie-in. I read one of the Indiana Jones books from that series, which was better than I remember it being, and I think better than it had any right to be. I think it was Indiana Jones and the Peril at Delphi. Brought back a lot of happy memories of reading his adventures when I was a teenager. So that was fun. I don't know what I'll be reading this year yet, but I'll probably participate in Garbaugust this year. And then also in August, I believe it's August, I'll be reading with Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf and Mitzi from Mitzi Reads and Writes. We'll be reading Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury, a book I haven't read in quite a few years. It's not one of my top 5 favorites, but I'm really interested to read this book now that I'm older. I'm looking forward to reading that now through the lens of, maybe somebody on the far side of 40, and seeing if the nostalgia that he writes about, if it hits me different. So Mitzi and Alice and I have been reading Ray Bradbury together maybe once or twice a year for the last couple of years. And, folks, if you've read through an author's work and you want to experience it again with fresh eyes and with just, with freshness, let me encourage you to find someone to buddy read it with, especially somebody who doesn't know about the genius of this author, or about somebody who doesn't know about the book, and they're coming to it from a fresh perspective. It really helps you see the book fresh again. And that has been my experience with the books we've read by Bradbury. I'm really grateful that technology has been able to connect us. We live all over the world, and yet Mitzi and Alice and I are able to get together and chat on Voxer about our reading experience. So I'm looking forward to reading Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury this summer. And then kind of a side note, I am going to try to resume my Ray Bradbury short story club, for lack of a better term. I'll be trying to talk about once a month about a Ray Bradbury short story, specifically the ones in his collection of, in his first collection called Dark Carnival. I think on a previous video I did mention I was able to find a copy of Dark Carnival that had just been republished in the UK. Only cost me about $10 to $12. I had to order it through the UK Amazon site because the US doesn't have it yet for some reason. But it's printed exactly as it was originally printed, with the same stories, all that. So I was so excited to get that. I do have a video recorded. I recorded it before I got sick. And that'll be coming out towards the end of June. And I'll be talking about the story, The Lake. It is a very somber and sad story, but it's one Bradbury wrote young in his career, but it really helped him realize that, I can actually write. This is good. And I can't argue with him. I mean, it's a very good, a very powerful story with incredible imagery in it, as you would expect from Bradbury. So I'll be talking more about The Lake later. Hopefully that video makes sense, because I recorded it I think right before I got sick, and I was already starting to feel a little out of it. So we'll have to see. So there's that. Oh, and then kind of saving the best for last. As some of you know, I also host a Christmas podcast. I do Christmas podcasts throughout the year. I'm one of those weirdos that doesn't mind celebrating or talking about Christmas anytime, any day. So that was a podcast I started back in 2020 during the pandemic, and that was my first attempts at podcasting, and just fell in love with it. So I don't do it as frequently during the spring and summer times, as much as the fall and winter, but we do have a Christmas book club that we're doing. Boy, and they're just a group of the most kind and patient people that they've just been very patient with me, because I'm trying to run this book club and also have to fuss about with things like being busy with my life and family and a full-time job and all that. You know how it is for you booktube creators, that all you want to do is read and record videos, but you have like real life stuff to do. It stinks. But anyway, so this summer we decided I'm going to really slow down the reading. Usually in the past, it's been about a book for 1 month, and then we talk about it for the following month. But this time we're just going to take one book and read it over the next 3 months. And the book that was chosen is The Christmas Train by David Balducci. Balducci, I don't know, whatever, this guy. And I know I've read it before. I couldn't remember what it was about, so I'm kind of feel like I'm going in with fresh eyes. And so we'll be reading that through June, July, and August. Because it's a lighter work, it's not a piece of, award-winning fiction. I'll be interested to know if it can stand up under a long form type of reading. And I'm just looking forward to reading it and talking about the book and Christmas in general with my reading group. It's just for those of you who run reading groups, how fun it can be to talk about books. And I love a little bit of Christmas any time of the year. So I'm really excited to have some Christmas coming over the summer. Besides, when you're a Christmas fanatic like I am, June is exciting because you get past the 6-month mark until December. So I know not everyone is into Christmas year round, but it's a lot of fun for me, and so I still do it. And you might wonder, well, who's listening to you in August? But I get people who like to listen to the podcast because they're doing like Christmas crafts, or already starting to work on things like that. Others work at a Christmas store, so that they like having that on in the background. I've heard from all kinds of people that, I just love Christmas and I want to hear about it year round. So we have a lot of fun. If you're interested, there's links below to the Cozy Christmas podcast. You can check that out. I read stories. I interview authors who have written Christmas books, and talk to other people who are just creative in the Christmas community, and that, demonstrate kindness and compassion year round, which goes back to my love for Charles Dickens and how he says, I'm going to honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. That's what I do over there. All right. So that about wraps up my summer TBR plans. I've got some things coming up here that I'm hoping to get back to publishing videos more consistently now. I think my next video should be my Jane Austen July TBR. And then there's a tag video I want to do. I've been tagged in a couple I haven't gotten to yet. They're relatively new to me, so I want to make sure to get those done. And I might even be a bit of a rebel and talk about Dickens during Jane Austen July. So I had a couple ideas about that. So if Jane Austen doesn't mind Dickens kind of horning in on her month, I had a few ideas I wanted to maybe film about Dickens, but we'll see. And then also I'm hoping to do some reading updates, maybe once every couple weeks, maybe not. I don't know. It's like the main part of booktube, and I can't seem to just schedule it right where I can just sit down and talk about the books I've read. It is what it is, I suppose. All right. Well, with that, I will go ahead and sign off. Make sure you like and subscribe, of course, as it obviously helps the algorithm. There are some links in the show notes here if you want to help support this channel. There are some ways to do that. And also, I'm getting one of my goals this year. I'd really like to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I had a bit of a hiccup again with missing out on a couple of months of publishing. So I don't know. We'll see if I can get there. But if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that if you'd like. Would love to have you around to talk more in the comments about all the great books we're reading. You know, reading is just the best activity ever. All right. Until next time, happy reading, everyone, and take care.